Japan's 0% homelessness rate is a facade. Yep, you heard that right. Beneath the futuristic landscape, cyber homelessness silently affects thousands, challenging Japan's claim of societal perfection. From the stark contrast of bustling Tokyo streets to the quiet desperation of those finding refuge in internet cafes. This video unravels the shocking truth behind Japan's elusive 0% homelessness. To understand this, let's hop in our time machine and take a peek at Japan's history. So, post-World War II, Japan was in the midst of some pretty hefty challenges. Picture this, a nation rebuilding itself, facing the aftermath of a world-shifting conflict. The cities lay in ruins, the infrastructure decimated, and the economy was in shambles. But the nation was like a phoenix rising from the ashes, determined to rewrite its destiny amidst the rubble. Fast forward to the swinging 60s and 70s, and the cities were booming. New industries were flourishing, and the gears of progress fueled by rapid urbanization were turning fast. However, this rapid transformation wasn't uniform for everyone. Which is to say, as Japan embraced its new urban landscape, the economic growth primarily favored certain sectors and demographics, leaving others behind, which ultimately gave rise to urban poverty. Now, we're no economists, but a quick Google search will tell you that urban poverty in simple words is like a tale of two cities, one thriving and the other dealing with the daily grind of low-paying jobs, high living costs, and limited access to resources. You can think of it as living in a city where flashy buildings and bustling streets might make it seem like everyone's doing well, but in reality, there's a significant number of folks who are barely making ends meet. That's precisely what was happening in Japan. While the glittering streets and technological advancements painted a picture of prosperity, the reality for many was starkly different. These underprivileged were living paycheck to paycheck, with some even unable to rent an apartment to spend the night. Now remember, Japan is a nation that's risen from the rubble at an unprecedented pace. People there have an incredible knack for hard work. So, as you would understand, in a society that places such importance on personal responsibility, most people wouldn't go out of their way to seek assistance, because doing so would be seen as a deviation from the expected path of self-sufficiency. And by the same measure, failure to provide for themselves will be seen as an embarrassment, both by themselves and, you guessed it, by the public too. Which is to say, being poor and homeless in Japan isn't just about surviving on a shoestring budget. You might also get a few side eyes and raised eyebrows if you're not trying to pull your own weight. In fact, according to a native Japanese, there's not much compassion for homeless people in the country, and they are usually seen as people who only have themselves to blame for their situation and who deserve no help at all. This is even stronger because the majority of homeless in Japan are men who are traditionally expected to be self-reliant. And while there is some support from voluntary groups, there is no permanent social safety net like in Western Europe. Plus, Japan's got some pretty strict rules about begging in public. Like, it's a full-on no-go by law. And here's the Tokyo twist. The city's got policies in place that are usually referred to as anti-homeless. We're talking parks turning into no-go zones after sunset. The authorities lock them up and don't even suggest benches and cozy corners for a good nap. Nah, they've got these designs that practically scream, "Uncomfortable zone, keep it moving." It's like Tokyo's way of saying no chill spots for you, all to make sure the homeless don't get too comfy and decide to stick around. Tough love, Japanese style. On the flip side, not every move Japan makes to tackle homelessness is unfriendly. Some policies actually look out for the public too. Take their healthcare system, for instance. It's top-notch. You might not know this, but on average, 1 in 3 people experiencing homelessness have a mental illness. But in Japan, they tend to place people with severe mental illnesses in mental health institutions. Now contrast that with the rest of the world, where they sometimes end up on the streets. Plus, Japan's legal frameworks like the Basic Act on Measures to Counteract Homelessness play a significant role in shaping the approach to homelessness. What stands out the most about it is that it's not just about shelters or food. Instead, it digs into why people end up without a home. It's saying, let's fix the root causes, not just the symptoms, flying the flag for human rights and dignity. It's not just fancy words, it's a promise to make sure every move they make respects the basic rights of people. It's about treating everyone the way they should be treated, with respect and dignity. In other words, the Japanese government is not just building shelters, it's making sure the whole process is as humane and respectful as possible. All of which might lead you to say, With all these measures in place, Japan's homelessness rate must really be 0%. Well, no, it's not as rosy as it seems. There are way more people in Japan without a home, but they're invisible to the official stats. How, you ask? So here's the deal. How Japan sees homelessness is a bit different from what many Western countries go by. They've got their own way of counting and sorting out people without a place to call home. In Japan, they mainly look at those who are easy to spot. You know, the ones living on the streets or hanging out in public places. But here's the problem with it. This method might miss out on those who don't exactly sleep under the open sky, even if they're going through homelessness. And that's where cyber homelessness comes in, or as these people are coolly known, the net cafe refugees. These are people who, for various reasons, don't have a stable place to crash. Maybe they lost their jobs or fell through the cracks of the social safety net. Or maybe they're part of what's known as Japan's lost generation. People who got left behind in the 80s boom or 90s market crash and now have no status, no real place in society, and a future that seems pretty uncertain. These people don't really have a place to call home, no fixed address, and they're missing out on quite a bit of what life has to offer. But guess what? You wouldn't guess it by looking at them. Nope, you won't find them snoozing on park benches or street corners. Instead, they're out there hustling, putting in the effort to keep themselves looking sharp, clean, and downright polite. Why, you ask? Well, it's all about dodging that heavy dose of shame that tags along with being homeless in Japan. Many of these people are hustling with temp jobs or doing day labor to make ends meet, and they drop a chunk of their daily wages, around 2,000 JPY or $18.50 per night, all for a cubicle with a futon mat. These cubicles are a part of internet cafes where our net cafe refugees can stay for as long as they want. The only catch? They have to pay by the hour, which isn't the most ripper deal. The cubicles typically designed for short-term computer use become home sweet home for these individuals. It's a stark contrast to the traditional image of homelessness we might envision. However, it's crucial to recognize the limitations of such arrangements. The absence of a genuine sense of security paints a somber picture of their daily existence. Unfortunately, here's where many of the lost generation spends their night. As of now, there are more than 4,000 internet cafes in Tokyo alone, where approximately 15,000 people crash overnight. We're talking about 5 times the figure the Japanese government puts forward for homelessness, a staggering contrast to their claim of 3,000 people. And get this, according to the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, a whopping 80% of them are actually employed. The craziest part is most of these people are young fellas working their tails off, yet can't afford a roof over their heads. Having said that, the cafes where they crash have stepped up their game big time, offering not just cyberspace, but also grub, drinks, fresh undies, and even showers. No beds though, just computer cubicles. That's the bedtime story for these net cafe refugees, sleeping in a sea of screens, the unconventional lullaby of the cyber homeless. With the glow of technology as the backdrop, the silent struggles of these individuals remain hidden from the government's eyes and statistics.